I think that, two things really stand out for me. One is that this is something new, and to approach it with as much openness and receptivity as one can, as something new. And not, as I say, I felt like I became kind of a prisoner of my comparing mind. And the way to get around that, I think, is to say, this is something new. You can't look back. You can't compare with what you remember. And so be open to newness. Initially, I felt uh, this was a really valuable substitution for what I was missing and what I knew. And I was open to trying new things. And then it kind of like a relationship. Then I went through a phase of like, this isn't as good as I thought. It's frustrating. There's technical problems. I miss the physical presence of other people. And I got into a lot of comparison. And yet there was another voice was saying, just hang with the process, stay with it, be open to new things. You don't know where this is going. And then there was a point at which it kind of, once the technical issues became fairly easy and resolved, I think that the idea of what I was doing matured, and I began to feel more and more comfortable with it, and less self-conscious in front of the computer, whether I was facilitating or dancing. It began to feel more natural. And part of that is just, you need to do something for a certain number of times before it feels like familiar and natural. And so once it did, and I still run into this with people when I invite them to come and they say, well, I don't feel comfortable dancing in my own room or whatever. So I know I know what that feels like, because I was there.
Mm.
And but at a certain point, I'd say, after about halfway, I felt the essence of the dance mandala process that I knew from sessions in the studio, began to be more and more present, in the online sessions. And I felt the outer layers dropped away, and all that was left was kind of the essence of the experience. And part of that, I think, a big part was two parts really that come to mind. One is really understanding what this means to be as a personal practice, as a practice that you commit to, or I commit to. In the studio, I used to come pretty much as often as I could, which would be, 3 or 4 times a week. And but along with that, there was a payoff about hanging out with other people and schmoozing afterwards. And, there's a whole social thing that was a part of the experience. And I had to let that go, at least most of it, and realize, what do I get as an individual in this experience? And that began to, kind of emerge when the outer trappings were not there. So that idea of it, being committed to it, not just as a facilitator, but as a dancer. And part of that also involves reflecting on my experience. And that's something I still am not completely satisfied with. But I feel like I've progressed to reflecting more, getting a notebook and, kind of a dance log, a dance journal that I didn't keep before, except for when I was in the training, appreciating more and more what it means as an individual practice. And just like I have my yoga practice and my meditation practice, there's a commitment to that. And then you begin to get, you receive things in response to the level of commitment. And the other thing that I'm aware of, like in my room where I practice now, to dance in this space is really different than dancing in what were public dance spaces, where I would go and I would dance and with other people or perform or whatever, but to do it in my own bedroom, my own personal space, my office, it's a transition.
Mm.
It's a repurposing of this space and a reinvesting it with different meaning than it had before. In my own practice with the dance mandala, every time I facilitate, and usually when I dance, I work with the four directions and I invite qualities to be more present in my experience from each direction. But before this practice, I never did it in my own bedroom. That has made this more of a sacred space. Um, yeah, I found it once I actually did it. It wasn't hard, and I appreciate at the beginning you recommended taking time and let it be fun and relaxed and not a burden. And I kept as I went through it, I kept reminding myself of that. So not get into a kind of a rigid mindset about it. So first of all, I mean, it invited me to reflect on what I was involved with and to write something about it. So writing is a wonderful way to bring down, thoughts pass. And then when I write them down, it makes me look at that thought and shape it more fully. Addition to involve expression, even if I never share with anyone else, just for my own reflection. And it was great to read other people, the other people who've gone through the process, and to realize, oh, that's different, or yeah, that I feel the same, and that everyone has their own experience, which wasn't sure about from the actual online experience, to read other people's reflections and to share my own.
Great. I just want to say thank you for being part of this alignment program. It's been almost a year since we started, and I definitely feel that we have done a lot of learning. And yeah, that this commitments of opening to newness, I think, is very important for these changing times and not getting stuck into what we